Hello everyone, Scorched Psyche here. Today I want to showcase a data pack that enables you to play a minigame called Dragon Egg Hunt. With a very dynamic gameplay, the game revolves around catching the egg and hitting other people. Okay, so I've built this arena on the Craftier server and I'm going to use it to demonstrate how you would usually run the minigame. Later in the video we'll talk more about how this works, but here we have two command blocks that will run the triggers to configure the arena. In a nutshell, this is how it works. First you define a region for the egg to spawn in. Then you define the player spawn location for when the game starts. You can optionally change the game duration. Also, you can optionally change the time it takes for the egg to glow after it's spawned. We initialize then the sign up stage, which is the stage where the players can join the minigame. After that comes the prepare stage, which is the stage where the players should expect the game to begin anytime soon. And then finally the play stage, where the players are teleported into the arena. When the game starts, players will receive a knockback 5 weapon, which is used to collect the eggs and hit other players. They are also equipped with a helmet that matches the datapack's theme. When the game clock ends, results will be displayed for 1 minute. During this time, players can keep doing PvP for fun, and after the 60 seconds have passed, the game will reset itself for replay. So now I'll explain a little bit about how the data pack works and some of the requirements that must be met for the game to be able to start. Okay, so first we're going to talk about the reset trigger. This trigger is useful to put the data pack in its initial stage, which is a stage before anything happens. So to execute the trigger to reset the data pack, you just run the command trigger Dragon Egg Hunt, which is DEH, and reset. As you can see, the command was executed successfully and the markers for the arena and the player spawn vanished. Now we're going to take a look at the configuration triggers. We're going to start with the duration trigger. If you run this trigger, you can specify in minutes the total length of time that the game will be played for. The time it takes for the egg to glow before it's spawned can be configured with this trigger. Note that this value is in seconds. There are two different ways to configure player spawn and arena boundaries. One is automatically using chain command blocks, where you press the button and everything is done for you. And the other one is a physical representation of the boundaries and player spawn. I'm going to start with the physical configuration for the boundaries. Once you run this trigger, the set boundary, you will have a visual representation with this white box. You can then position the boxes at both corners of the rectangle, wherever you want the egg to spawn in, and the egg will spawn inside this rectangle. The manual configuration for the player spawn works the same way as the boundary. If you run the trigger DEH set spawn, you will have this visual representation that you can position it at the desired location for the player to spawn in. The other option is to use individual commands to set each coordinate for the player spawn and boundaries. So for example, you can either run them manually, like so, the EH set bound, and then you have all the coordinates for the set bound, and then in the end you chain set boundary to actually save the coordinates and spawn in the markers. So this is what I have here, and all these buttons here. I have command blocks below, which have the specific points for the coordinates. I'm gonna demonstrate it here with this command block. For example, it runs the trigger the age set bound x1, and then it sets y1, z1, and then goes to x2, y2, z2, and in the end I trigger the age bound ready to save the coordinates. Same goes for player spawn. The age set spawn x, y, and z, and then in the end the age spawn ready. With the automatic commands, you can easily switch between arenas. For example, say I want to play this arena, I come in here, I press the buttons, I configure it, and then, oh no, I changed my mind, I want to play this arena instead. So I come in here, I click this button, and it's all set up. To run the minigame, you have a few triggers, the first one being the age hunt stage 1. When you run this trigger, you enable the first stage of the hunt, which is the sign up stage. After this stage is active, players can run two triggers: the age hunt join to join the hunt and participate in the minigame, and the age hunt leave for players to actually leave the hunt. All the configuration triggers can be run while the sign up stage is active or before it. The next trigger is to go to the stage 2, which is the prepare stage. Once you run this trigger, the game will do some checks to see if everything is set up and configured properly. For example, it just warned me that the player's spawn location point is not set, neither are the boundaries. Other requirements that must be met in order for you to run the trigger for the stage 2 are that the players must be closer than 128 blocks to the spawn point. Also, there must be participants in the game, and all these participants must have their inventory empty. If all these requirements are met, you can actually run the trigger. And then the final stage, which is the play stage, checks if players have items in their inventory before running the trigger. If the condition is not met, the trigger will not run and a warning will be displayed. If the requirements are met, then players will be teleported to the player spawn location when you run the trigger. And the game starts. Some arena design considerations. The player has some additional status effects that change the vanilla gameplay experience. For example, we have absorption and regeneration, which allows us to make this TNT launcher, for example. Also, the player has jump boost too, which allows the player to jump more than 2 blocks of height. So if you want to block the player from going over something, just stack 3 blocks. And also, lastly, we have Dolphin's Grace to have a better underwater experience. So there's a feature in the datapack that I want to talk about right now, which is the ability to get random buffs and debuffs during the game. So whenever a player comes close to the bell and right clicks on it, the player gets a random buff and debuff. As you can see here, we have, these are the permanent buffs for the datapack: absorption, jump boost, speed 2, Dolphin's Grace, regeneration, and saturation. And if I right click on the bells, I get buffs and debuffs. There's currently no cooldown implemented to get the buffs and debuffs because it's random, and it can either help or disrupt the player experience. Another design consideration for whenever you're gonna make your arenas is this feature. For example, let's say that these iron blocks are the arena boundaries and the red marker is the player's pawn. If I start the game and leave the boundaries, the player will be teleported back into the arena and will be given blindness and slowness debuffs. This is useful because you can then make these types of arenas where players can push each other off of the arena and gain an advantage. The last design considerations for whenever you're gonna make your arenas is that the egg will not spawn above these blocks, because it either replaces the block below it or the egg breaks when it falls, since it's a gravity block. So these are the only conditions that the egg won't spawn above. The reasoning behind this is that we do not want to generate a new coordinate, because that would slow down the egg appearance in the arena. So we are currently checking as few blocks as possible, so the egg will spawn, for example, normally above carpets and slabs. Okay guys, that's it. I hope you enjoyed the data pack. If you have any questions or suggestions, I'll leave some links down in the description below, in the show notes section. And if you liked the video, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel. And I think that's it, guys. Till next time.